Late AmaZulu regent Queen Mantomi Dlamini Zulu interred at midnight in a private ceremony attended by close members of the Zulu and Swati royal families. Kwakhangela Royal Palace was a hive of activity as the Zulu nation welcomed her remains last night. Let's get you a sense of the mood at the palace this morning. My co-anchor Ayanda Nyathi is there for us live at Kwakhangela Royal Palace. Ayanda, it's great to see you, albeit not in studio. It was a somber mood at the palace last night, a hive of activity, but you could really get a sense, even in the visuals that we were showing to our viewers just a little earlier, you can get a sense of the real somber mood that took place as that interment went ahead last night.
And that's why it's absolutely no surprise that the traditional Prime Minister, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, went on to actually thank everybody who had been a part of the visuals that you've just described right now, because by all measures, it appears that everything took place as it was meant to. It's currently about 13 degrees Celsius. Tell you what, I'm not used to this kind of weather, but it's certainly the kind of adjustment people need to make as they make their way to Kwakhangela Makengane. If we had spoken literally 15 minutes ago, it would have been incredibly difficult for you to see me. Dawn has just broken, and with that, the kind of movement you would expect the morning after the interment has also taken place. Just behind me, you can already see some of those structures that have been put up are still standing in anticipation for what is the next step, which by all accounts is the state provincial funeral, which is going to take place tomorrow. But upon our arrival just a few moments ago here, we could hear Inyosi, the praise singers, still, if you like, paying tribute to the regent in some respects as they continue marking this moment for the AmaZulu nation. Michelle.
I mean, it's such a big moment, and it's even more sad because of the fact that you were there just some weeks ago for the planting of the king of the AmaZulu nation. Are you getting a sense, I know you haven't been there for very long, just since yesterday, are you getting a sense of this moment for the AmaZulu nation and how they are handling it?
The term used by Amabuto, who we have spoken to here on Newzroom Afrika several times, is they are at a loss for words to try to describe even the phenomenon of what they're experiencing. I mean, it really has been unprecedented, unexpected, and many other adjectives to that effect. But what is also worth noting is where it puts the royal house at this stage. I mean, typically, when there is a monarch that passes on, of course, a regent is appointed. But not much has been said about what happens when the regent themselves pass on and what happens thereafter. And I guess that kind of provides the kind of backdrop to, call it, the disagreements that have been taking place within the royal house itself, because in many respects, the uncharted territory that this leaves the AmaZulu nation is contested territory itself. And with that, perhaps, Michelle, it's also worth reflecting on the role that the late regent typically is meant to be playing within the AmaZulu royal house. So part of the information that I have that has become available to me is that there is some kind of, call it, arrangement between different kingdoms to try and ensure that they sustain a relationship between them. Part of that arrangement includes arranged marriages. Why is this important? Well, we know that Queen Mantomi herself is from the Swati kingdom, and in many respects, the role or her marriage into the Zulu monarchy was intentional, in part to try and maintain these relations that I've alluded to, but more importantly, because a king in many kingdoms, including the Zulu one, is meant to also get a wife who is specifically meant to provide an heir to the throne. It is, I guess, that kind of knowledge that becomes important as we try to navigate the different voices that are starting to speak out within the Zulu royal house about what happens next beyond the processes that will unfold in the next 24 hours or so.
And I mean, as this happens, as the Queen's interment took place at midnight last night. And as we try to, come to grips with what happens now, the AmaZulu king has been planted. The regent has now also passed away. And then there's also the tension in the family itself, insofar as the succession is concerned.
Absolutely. I mean, the backdrop is twofold. And look, the optics are going to be quite interesting from tomorrow, because we know that Queen Sibongile and her court case is meant to begin tomorrow in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. That will coincide with the state provincial funeral that I've already alluded to a bit earlier on. But yeah, the contention is, amongst other things, of course, questions being asked about the validity of the will itself, the will of the late King Goodwill Zulu, Zulu, and also questions, I guess, in part about who is meant to take over from where the regent left off in some respects. But again, this does point to the kind of dynamics I had tried to outline for you, Michelle, a few moments ago, that Queen Mantfombi herself, by sheer fact of her coming from a royal family, typically would enter this royal family with the purpose of trying to bear an heir for the king in the eventuality that the king passes on. Given how widespread that knowledge is, especially within the royal house, it does beg questions about why then Queen Sibongile, who we know is the first wife, would then go on to lodge the kind of dispute that she has lodged. I mean, by all indications, we are being told that traditionally it is a wide-known phenomenon that the arrangement in and of itself even gives a Queen Mantfombi some kind of seniority, even though she is not the first wife within the Zulu monarch. So I wonder how those contestations will unfold. I wonder what message it sends out, especially to those who know. I mean, for instance, when a Queen Mantfombi's negotiations for Lobola are taking place, it's widely known that the AmaZulu nation itself would contribute to that end with the intention or with the knowledge that she would then come through and like I said, bear the king the heir to the throne. What is also being contested now are issues around customary law, customary marriage, what is expected insofar as customs are concerned, and of course what the Western law, to use the term loosely, would actually expect. Because part of what Queen Sibongile is saying is that her marriage was a civil one and therefore takes precedent insofar as South African law is concerned. And she might have a point. The Customary Marriages Act, I think, of 1998 is very clear that if there is a civil union and that hasn't been surmised, any other marriage that follows thereafter, I guess, isn't necessarily a marriage that can stand. But again, the emphasis here is if we go according to those Western precepts. But if tradition and cultural observances are anything to go by, a Queen Sibongile will certainly have an uphill battle to try to prove her point.
Ayanda, very, very quickly before we let you go there, so what happens today insofar as ceremonies are concerned? I know the official funeral is tomorrow, but what does the next 2 days have in store for us there at Kwakhangela?
Well, if everything goes according to plan, from here on, it's all about ensuring that there is the logistics that's taken care of. Like I said, the marquee behind me, I imagine, is going to be a center of a lot of attention in the hours to come. We're already getting a sense of some kind of movement taking place. But, Michelle, I imagine a lot of what takes place in the next couple of hours will also involve a reckoning with where we're at. Unlike call it the orders of what took place when the king was laid to rest. In this instance, there is a day in between the interment itself and the state provincial funeral, and perhaps that's because lessons were learned when the king was laid to rest. The turnaround time, for lack of a better term, was very quick. In this particular instance, you certainly are getting a sense even now that people are taking time to ensure that everything is in place accordingly in the lead up to that state funeral tomorrow.
My co-anchor Ayanda Nyathi is live to us there at Kwakhangela Palace in Nongoma as we continue to track that story for you.